Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. Where only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗃 Candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, tap that like button and hit that subscribe button. What's up, Phil, the podcast doctor?
That's right. Please hit that subscribe button and that like button. And also, if you see that button directly under this video, that means you can join our membership program. That means we have 3 separate tiers, all offering its own set of perks, whether it's extra shows, early releases, live streams, discounts on merch. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So just click on that button right under the video to get access. So there you go. So what's up?
Oh, man, another Meji today. We're getting to the halfway point, man. Baba Okana Meji, also Baba Okana Meji. Really excited about this one, man. A lot of good information.
Okay, I mean, is this going to be one like the Shango one where
it's spicy?
It's
a spicy 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁, man. It gets really picante.
All right, so to the audience, go grab your chips and salsa.
Oh yeah,
because this is going to be a spicy one. So let's hear it.
Here we go. Right, let's go kick it off. So in this 𝗀𝗲𝗹 of Baba Okana Meji or Baba Okana Meji, it speaks of 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, right? And 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 was a king, and he had a palace. And now, mind you, regardless of genders, it's not really focusing on that, but it says that 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 either had a servant or a partner who was Eshu, right? Who would live in the house and attend to him, her, being that 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 is androgynous, neither here nor there. And 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 would have to travel a lot. His profession would cause him to have to be outside of the house for long stretches of time, And one trip, he came back and he felt off. He's like, man, my house feels weird. I mean, everything was tidy. Everything was clean. It was a very pristine environment. But he's like, something's not right in my home. And he went running to visit the owl. And divination was performed for 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲. And Baba Okana Meji was revealed, where Orunmila told 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 that there was actually no 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 necessary per se. If he wanted to find out what was going on in his home, he just had to show up a half hour early from work. And when he walked into the palace early and unannounced, he saw Eshu basically having a freak show party, right? Kind of like the Wolf of Wall Street, where the guy came home and the butler was, having a moment with all his friends.
Okay.
And 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 was completely appalled. And what he noticed is Eshu was sitting on the royal throne mocking 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲. And 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 crept up behind him. Everybody kind of paused and was like, oh man, we got caught. But Eshu continued because he didn't know 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 was there. And 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 tapped him on the shoulder and said, is that what you really think about me, when I'm not here? And Eshu turned white. He was like, no. It was a joke. We were throwing a party for you. A bunch of lies. And 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 yoked him up and kicked him out of the house. And he said, from this day forward, I don't want you in my home. You live outside. And in this 𝗀𝗲𝗹 is basically why Eshu lives outside of the house, ideally, at the front door, because he betrayed 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲. So in this 𝗀𝗲𝗹, it says that whether it be the child of 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, whether it be anybody with this 𝗀𝗲𝗹, we want to be home as much as possible. And it doesn't have to be something as salacious as infidelity, but it could be that there's situations in our home that need our attention that we're not attending to. Could be because of stress, because it seems like we may have an inability to, but we have to confront the problems that face our home always, because in this sign, 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 would avoid having to address the things in his home due to constantly working. So from another standpoint, it speaks of the importance of transparency within a relationship, because Eshu would be home all day, 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 would be working all day, and due to the loneliness, Eshu would try to, fraternize with other people without telling 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 in his home. So this 𝗀𝗲𝗹 speaks of the importance of why ideally we should have Eshu as close to the door as possible or outside, because when Eshu is in the house, he causes complete havoc, especially in this 𝗀𝗲𝗹. Unfortunately, Baba Okana Meji, within the Afro-Cuban context, we always say todo al revés, where everything was backwards. because in this sign, when Eshu wasn't attended to, he would turn everything upside down.
Okay.
And there's a famous story where it says that there was a babalawo who didn't know how to practice Ifa, per se. He didn't know how to interact with the Orisha. And one day, he went to give a rooster to Shango, to Eshu, right? And when he was giving, basically the presentation to Eshu, he was asking for everything backwards because he didn't know how to properly speak Yoruba. So instead of asking for blessings, he was asking for blessings and whatnot. And, he actually didn't know how to maneuver the oracle or the moyuba correctly, any of these different things, because he wanted to be independent before time to not pay homage to his elders and learn through apprenticeship. He had a little bit of arrogance. And Shango, seeing what was going on, and Eshu kind of seeing as well, they wanted to test his character. So Shango ran up and said, hey, instead of giving the rooster to Eshu, give the rooster to me. And Okana Meji was like, but I'm giving it to Eshu. And he's like, I can do more for you than Eshu ever could. So he got tempted out of doing the right thing and gave the rooster to Shango. And when he did that, Eshu became enraged completely, where he gave him the opposite of what he had asked for. So when he was in front of Eshu asking for blessings, instead of that, Eshu gave him all the negativities. And when the guy went running to Shango to get help, Shango was like, hey, man, you gave me the rooster, but I don't want no problems with 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏. So this Odu speaks of the importance of humility, that the person has to learn from their elders. They have to get the green light from their elders to practice. And we're going to get into other themes in this Odu where it's very important to fraternize in a healthy fashion, because it's important to learn from our elders, but we can learn from our brothers as well. We have to learn how to coexist in this fraternity because everybody's a king here. Everybody has a crown. Regardless of how much somebody knows or does not know, there's a code of ethics and conduct. And unfortunately, Okana Meji, in this Odu, being that he wanted to run before he could walk, he started making mistakes. His character was tempted, and he failed. And because of it, Eshu kind of destroyed his life. So it's very important there. Shango is a very important Orisha here as well. It's actually the Odu that they say Shango came down from heaven in. 𝗵𝗏𝗶𝗏 speaks of it as well, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏. But Okana Meji is seen as the 𝗃𝗏𝗍 of Shango. And we're going to get into a couple patakis about that as well. In this Odu, there's a lot of information here. It's very grandiose. In this Odu, it speaks of a pataki where Orunmila was visiting a land he had not visited in quite some time. It was known as the land of 𝗃𝗏𝗃. And when he arrived, he expected to see his sons practicing Ifa the same way he had left it to them. But when he got to the nearest Ifa temple, he saw women performing dafa, or 𝗃𝗏𝗃 divination, rather than the men. And he said, my daughters, what's going on? And they said, Father, it's a pleasure to see you. No, your sons, the awos, are at home. We gave them the day off.
What?
And he said, okay. So he went to go visit them at home. And they were partying, and drinking, smoking cigars, and, just living the life. And when he walked in, he said, hi. And everybody hit the deck. They were like, oh, my God, it's Dad. So everybody kneeled and, 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 and all that. And when they got up to salute him, they invited him to a drink and to eat and to smoke and, enjoy all the pleasures of life. He said, why are the women performing the men duties? Why are they performing dafa? Why are they sacrificing? Why are they doing all these things? Why is this being allowed? I didn't teach you guys that way. And they said, no, we got tired. We got a little lazy. We didn't want to study no more. So we just let the women do it. They wanted to do it, and, they have hand of Ifa, and, he was like, whatever. We did a young Ifa to everybody, and everything's good. And Orunmila flipped out. He was about to curse them. He said, if you guys don't make things right now and assume your babalawo responsibilities and be the spiritual leaders of what I left you, you're all dead. And the babalawos immediately put everything down. They stopped the party. They shut off the sound system and the boombox. Yeah. And they went running to the Ifa temple, and they took the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 away from the women. And they said, from this day forward, women will not perform any of the responsibilities of babalawo. They will be nurturers. They will be facilitators. The women should be the ones that should be allowed to relax and have peace, being that they facilitate childbirth. You know, and that's why Okana Meji is one of the 𝗀𝗲𝗍, at least within the Afro-Cuban context, why Yang Ifa is not a possibility, right? In this 𝗀𝗲𝗍, Ifa states that the person, right, has to assume their responsibilities. They need to study. They need to prepare themselves, whether it be spiritually or professionally, because if we delegate too much, we lose our tact. We lose our precision. And this 𝗀𝗲𝗍 explains why the Babalawo has to be obedient to Ifa. He has to be active in Ifa. He has to be prepared in Ifa so that a situation like this never repeats itself. It's also very important that roles are understood within a relationship. Now, by no means do I believe a woman should cook every day or a man has to change the oil every time. But nature has stipulated things for us based on our physiology, biology, anatomy, etc. And the worst thing we could do is not accept that. Now, this 𝗀𝗲𝗍 says that the woman, based on her knowledge of Ifa and growth within Ifa, can attain the position of 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗸𝗍, which is the highest position within the Ifa-centric practice of this spirituality for the woman, where she's able to interact with the Babalawo's Ifa, facilitate in all its regards, but ultimately she focuses on Orisha. The biggest taboo in this 𝗀𝗲𝗍 is when the men do the things the women should be doing and the women do the things the men should be doing. So it's very important that we understand roles and we work in unison so that a lack of prestige never comes to the home.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
There's another 𝗀𝗲𝗍, or another pataki better said, that speaks of relationships in this sign. In this 𝗀𝗲𝗍, the rooster was Orunmila's best friend, right? 𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃. And he was married to the hen. And the rooster would invite Orunmila over to his home to eat and all these different things. And the hen had very bad character, right? Now, Orunmila would mind his business because at the end of the day, it was his friend's wife. And he never wanted to disrespect the home. But the way the hen would treat the rooster would greatly disturb Orunmila. And Orunmila stopped visiting the house. And the rooster noticed this. So he went looking for him and he said, "Why don't you come over anymore?" He said, "Well, my friend, sincerely, I can't stand to see you abused anymore." Because the hen would pluck or pick at the rooster, you know, kind of like it does the food off of the ground. And he said, "You know, I love you and I appreciate you and all the hospitality you show. You're a fabulous brother, but the hen, she's very difficult, you know, and I don't want to ever disrespect your home, but I don't want her to ever disrespect me either." So the rooster said, "Okay." So the rooster went back and told the hen all of the things that he felt she was doing wrong, right? In some versions, not popular versions, but in some versions, she acquiesced and became more hospitable and respected her husband and respected Orunmila by not overstepping boundaries. But in the more popular version, because it says 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗃𝗃 in the prayer, where the hen killed the rooster, the hen basically picked at the rooster until he died. She plucked his eyes out. So this was a big scandal. And when Orunmila heard about this, he was so hurt that he grabbed the hen and he killed her and he ate her. Baba Okana Meji is the 𝗀𝗲𝗍. One of the 𝗀𝗲𝗍s why Orunmila eats hens, because the hen killed her husband, the rooster, who was a Babalawo, and disrespected him. So that's why in commemoration of his friend, Orunmila said, "I'll always eat the woman that killed my best friend, the rooster." So when we interpret Ifa, this 𝗀𝗲𝗍 speaks of the importance, once again, of roles. Men have a role, women have a role, and so that there's always prestige and respect within the home or community, we can never transgress upon each other's space. Nature has identified things for a reason, because in this 𝗀𝗲𝗍, it says that we have to be very careful that the man is not being mistreated by the woman or being coerced by the woman, because the rooster wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to be friends with Orunmila. He wanted to invite the Babalawos over. He wanted to fraternize, but the hen was like, "I don't want them in the house. I don't want them around. I need you to focus on me. You do what I say," these kind of things. And it was just a very toxic environment. So this 𝗀𝗲𝗍 speaks of the importance of giving each other space, allowing each other to express themselves, knowing who should respond to what and how we will as a household in communion, and everything will go well. But the day that that fabric begins to deteriorate, horrible things happen. So, but ultimately it's the pataki why Orunmila consumes the hen, because the hen had very bad character. And Orunmila couldn't tolerate the abuse she was providing to her husband any further.
Okay.
Baba Okana Meji. In this Odu, it speaks of when the Babalawo would not study Ifa. And in this sign, the Babalawo was an initiate of Eshu. And it was Eshu B, right? And that's where the famous song, 𝗃𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃, 𝗃𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃, Okana Meji, 𝗃𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, first manifested. Because in this Odu, Eshu B initiated into Ifa. It was his desire. It was his dream since he was a youth. But once he did it, he didn't feel like Ifa provided enough money. So he decided to stop studying Ifa. And because of it, he started working the farm, right? Because he thought he would make more money, I don't know, planting fruits and yams and things of that nature. He thought it would be lucrative for him. So in the beginning, sure, he saw a little bit of movement, but ultimately he couldn't handle the work anymore. It was nothing but sweat and toil under the sun, and he was an older guy, so he's like, yo, my body can't tolerate this kind of work no more. I need to find a solution. So he went running back to Orula. And when he came back, he started complaining to Orula, like, Ifa doesn't make me money. These 100 jobs that I have don't make me money. You lied to me. And Orunmila looked at him and said, no, I never told you it was going to be easy. But abandoning me and Ifa was never the answer, my son. Remember that 100 days on the mat is better than 1 hour in the fields. Okana Meji says this as well.
Okay, I can see that.
And, there was an embrace and, there was a reconnection. And it was almost like the prodigal son where, based on Eshu B's negative behavior, Orunmila had to give him space and time to be able to recuperate from his arrogance. But once he saw the light and once he started assimilating, the importance of Ifa in his life, whether he was going to practice it for clientele or not, more importantly for his home, Orunmila accepted him back immediately. This is one of the Odus where the Babalawo can always come back to Ifa. He can always come back to his brothers. He can always be reassimilated as long as nothing heinous has occurred, But this Odu speaks of why the Babalawo must study every day. It is why the Babalawo, even though he has a business or a profession, still has to study Ifa with fervor. Because what some brothers don't realize is that you may be, you may have a trucking company or you may have a record label or any of these things, and you might be making really great money with that. But the day you abandon Ifa, even if you're not making money off of Ifa, those businesses might fall. And most people are like, well, why does one have to do with the other? Orunmila might be providing you the blessing through that medium because of your, obligation and loyalty to Ifa and fulfilling it. But the day you don't do that, Orunmila's like, well, I got to get your attention again. So what he does is he eliminates all the other prosperity to force us back to him. So it's better to avoid that altogether, to be able to never go through those downtimes, because they can be very stressful when we're husbands, head of households, etc., fathers, So, and it also is one of the Odus that speaks of the birth of the ceremony of the Ijoye. So when you look at the 7th day of the Ifa, when we come out and the brothers beat us down with sticks if we've been misbehaving, it speaks, and the person is manifesting Eshu B when he would leave Ifa, or the room, to go and basically till the fields, right? When he's basically interacting with the dirt. And after getting beat down a couple times, he's like, I'm done with this. I'm going back to the garden. And that's ultimately what happens. So it's saying that no matter how hard Ifa may seem, it's so much more easier than what's out there. And for the Babalawos such as myself, who Ifa is basically their 9 to 5, I could attest to this. I mean, my first job was in a sweatshop, Phil. I'm not sure if I ever told you that.
No, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, I worked in a sweatshop laundry making like $6 an hour, man.
Oh my goodness.
That was my first job, yeah. And I mean, I would come home drenched, man. I mean, yo estaba flaco. I mean, I was thin. Yeah, I was like 18, you know what I'm saying? I had one pair of Dickies. Like, I tell you, bro, I never want to go back to that. Wow. So I don't care how much my hip hurts from being on the mat, I stay on the mat. And this Odu really reiterates that. You know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful pataki.
Yeah, I get it.
This Odu speaks of the importance of humility. In this Odu, Baba Okana Meji, after re-assimilating Ifa and learning Ifa, became very knowledgeable. This is an Odu of a lot of knowledge when applied correctly. They say that he was the most knowledgeable at one point. But with knowledge, without maturity comes arrogance, right? So there was a huge, I guess, symposium, I guess you could say, or conference that was going to occur where all of the Babalawos were going to head to Olodumari's palace to be able to discuss themes and, you know, debate and, you know, give Olodumare the best advice to be able to govern the universe, which was a monumental task. And Okana Meji was one of the first invited, obviously. But he went for divination first to see how things would go. And when he went to visit Orunmila, his own Odu was revealed, where Orunmila told him, do not speak unless spoken to. Now, this was pretty difficult for him because he had studied so hard and he wanted to show all that he had learned, but the problem wasn't his knowledge. The problem was his application and intentions. He wanted to show up his brothers. So he didn't listen to Orula. He went into the conference and he went in talking. He would cut people off. He would interrupt people speaking. He would speak louder than people. He was speaking incoherencies. And the other Babalawos were just looking at him. And they were like, and he didn't notice because he was basically in love with the sound of his own voice. And Olodumare noticed the contention and he kind of ended the conference early because he didn't want to be witness to any of it. So Okana Meji left thinking he had a victory in his pocket. But he didn't realize that all the other Babalawos started cursing him. Some of them went as far to, God forbid, do things even more. And it all started affecting him. This is a traditional verse, by the way. And he started seeing the effects immediately. He lost his clientele. He lost his resources. It started affecting his home. It started issues with his significant other. You know, it started getting really bad really quickly where he was in dire straits. So he went running back to Orunmila. Okana Meji was revealed again that, you know, all of this was a result of him not listening to Orunmila's advice when he went to visit the conference. So Okana Meji was like, well, what do I do now? And Orunmila told him, apart from performing sacrifice, you need to perform 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗲, which is the 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗲 sacrifice of good character and conduct, to begin to start remedying and repairing all of the relationships he had broken up until that point, where individually, one by one, he began interacting with his brother Babalawos in a peaceful fashion, in a humble fashion, in a constructive fashion, and little by little, each of them began to ease up as far as how they felt about him, where he was ultimately able to assume his position within the corpus of Ifa as one of the most knowledgeable Odus. But he began to realize knowledge wasn't everything. Good intentions, good vibes, all of those things are important as well, because there's no point in being Einstein if no one likes you. You know, Einstein was a very likable guy. He was a very funny guy, you know, so it's the same concept with anybody who attains knowledge. The knowledge is a means to an end to gain wisdom. And the wisdom that we gain via knowledge lets us know that to be knowledgeable is much more than just reading or repeating things. It's knowing how to impart that knowledge upon others without offending. So, very important lesson in this Odu. So I want to get into Shango. This is where he came down from heaven, right? Shango, when he first came down from heaven, they say he wasn't what he is now. When we think of Shango, we think of, you know, big muscular guy, corpulent guy, drummer, dancer, king, you know, a man's man. But when he came down, he was actually very timid, right? And he would get bullied and things like that. And, you know, it was actually sad because he came from a royal bloodline, but, you know, he was not being accepted by his peers. So it was greatly frustrating and traumatizing him. So his father took him to visit Orunmila, where the Odu of Okana Meji was revealed in his initiation. And they prescribed 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗶 with 201 rocks. And when they did the 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗶 with the rocks, Shango became strong. Shango began defending himself. The rocks actually were a metaphor for lightning. And basically anybody that would try to hurt him, he would throw a rock or a lightning bolt at him. And he would dead him right there. And because of this, people not only, you know, respected him, they began to fear him. because they say that his original name upon birth was 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁, which means he who throws rocks, and then it converted into Shango, he who has the right to hit, or he who hits with the stick. I mean, if you look at Shango, one of the implements that manifested in this Odu is his staff, whether it be, the Okumambo and Odika, or the Ogo, which is like, a bat. It almost looks like it's a club, right? And in this sign, Shango became strong. He became brave. He gained integrity, right? And people started respecting him, and he started having self-confidence. So it's a beautiful story in that regard, because you think about how bullying is an epidemic and people being mistreated, children, all these different things. It's very important to learn how to defend ourselves. This is an Odu of martial arts, believe it or not, where it built self-confidence and allowed the person to feel comfortable within their own skin. From a negative standpoint, they were completely frustrated, and it showed. So this Odu speaks of the importance of investing in ourselves and working through our traumas so that we don't share our pain with others, right? So continuing with Shango, which is kind of like the other half of the story, it's kind of parallel. There was a friendship that was present in this Odu. The gentleman's name was 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁, right? And his best friend's name was Abo, the ram. And they had a fruit business together, right? They would sell watermelons and mameis and, whatever. I don't know what fruit is in Nigeria, but, they had fruit, the bananas, sure. But they noticed that their inventory would go missing. So they went and visited Orunmila, and Baba Okana Meji was revealed, where Ifa said they needed to perform sacrifice with fruit and red cloth and leave it at 4 corners to find out who the culprit was that was stealing from them, who would dare do this. So the friends, they put the basket with the red cloth on the 4 corners, and they hid at one of the corners to watch who was going to steal the fruit. So hours went by, and Shango looked at the ram and said, bro, I'm tired. I don't got time for this. I'm not going to lose a night of partying over 6 bananas, so I'll leave you here because, you don't like to go out like that, and I'll check on you later. And the ram was like, go ahead. So 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁 dipped, and the ram had a condition known as narcolepsy, where he would fall asleep.
Oof, yeah.
And after a couple of hours, and if you look at the ram, it actually does doze off, So he heard like a tussle or some movement, and when the ram looked up, he saw his best friend 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁 stealing the fruits and the cloth running away with it. So he realized that his friend was the one who was robbing him the whole time.
Jeez, betrayal.
You know what I'm saying? So this was a big issue now, because 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁 was actually next in line to become the king of Oyo. And when he went through his crowning process, they named him Shango, he who hits hard, right? Now, this was even more of an issue because now the ram had dirt on him. And he basically went through all the 16 townships of Yoruba land saying 𝗃𝗲𝗹, who is now Shango, is a thief. And this was a big issue, because the past came to haunt him. So Shango started flipping out, lightning, thunder, brimstone, and the Babalaos performed divination to see how they could placate this god king, right? The 𝗃𝗍𝗃.
Yeah.
And Okana Meji came out again. And they just looked at him and said, bro, what do you want? He said, the only way I'll calm down is if I receive the sacrifice of a ram. Well, guess what? The only ram was his ex-best friend. So they went and kidnapped the ram.
Jesus.
You're very disappointed in Shango, Phil. I could tell. And when they brought the ram in, Shango sang, Murele, 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 bale. Put him to the earth, put him to the earth. Firolo, 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 bale. Close his mouth, close his mouth. And then when they stuck the knife in his neck, they sang, Abo firolo, firolo, bale. Abo firolo, 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 bale. And basically the ram started dying out. He started bleeding out, right? And they say that the ram had so much honor, he didn't cry. He didn't scream. The only thing he let down was a tear. And for all of those, not to be too graphic, who have sacrificed a ram, till this day, the ram does not make a noise. He just cries. You actually see the condensation coming out of his eye. So with his last dying breaths, he looked at Shango And he said, it doesn't matter if it's in hell. It doesn't matter if it's in heaven or right here. I'm going to tell everybody you were a thief. And that's why you'll see at the tambores, you'll see the apong will start saying, Emiole, miole, araole, miole. And it's basically saying, I'm a thief, I'm a thief. Everybody in the town knows I'm a thief. And Shango will come down and he'll start asking everybody for money or running up in people's pockets. It's the wildest thing, man, because it's so real. But a sad story because the ram died for no reason other than telling the truth. And that's a really resounding message here. Okana Meji can never be an enemy of the truth. He has to allow the truth to flow. But the only way to know the truth is to study and prepare oneself. The ram was not wrong. Now, mind you, Okana Meji says you have to know when to speak and how to speak and be prepared before you do speak, to never be basically crucified to say the same way the ram was. This Odu speaks of the importance of fraternity. It speaks of the importance of loyalty, honesty, understanding what all of those concepts really mean, because 𝗃𝗿𝗲 was willing to, be friends with the ram as long as he was getting money with the ram. But when he realized he could rob him, he's like, you could go. So Okana Meji has to be careful to know the cost of everything and the value of nothing, because he could lose a lot of great people in his life. Had Shango kept the ram by his side, he would have been the strongest king ever, because he was the one friend or the one person that really cared about him. So this person in Okana Meji has to be careful not to hurt the people that are trying to help them, the people that care about them, because Shango was willing to sacrifice anybody to accomplish his deeds. So all of that was born there. Until this day, when we sacrifice the ram to Shango, we still sing the same songs. So all of that. And actually, the really interesting part about that is the verse is in the Afro-Cuban Lukumi, but there's also a verse to provide a ram to Shango and Isese as well. So it's one of those things that made it over pretty perfectly, So
you say Shango will sacrifice anybody to...
The toxic one. The toxic one for sure. I mean, what does fire stop for unless it's stopped?
Water?
Exactly. But you're looking at a completely opposing force. The point being made is that fire, let's say fire is hungry, or fire wants that tree across the forest. He will burn everything in his path to get to that one goal. So if Shango is fire, in a toxic sense, that's his character. Or if we look at something like electricity or lightning, what stops lightning? Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah,
it goes through whatever it has to, until it meets an opposing force, like a rubber, I don't know. But when you look at the things associated with Shango, specifically in this Odu, it says it was overly ambitious because he lost more trying to gain what he thought he needed, what he thought he wanted. When in reality, by the time he got there, he destroyed everything to the point where it was pointless. What's the point of, having a house in a neighborhood that you burned down to get? What's the point of, anything with that kind of dynamic? You know what I'm saying? You have to get there at a pace that's steady and non-destructive. But when you're ambitious or greedy, you'll do anything. And by the time you get what you want, it's pointless,
I hear you.
So, Baba Okana Meji, right?
Yeah.
This is an Odu that speaks a lot of prosperity. It says that the person owning their own business could become very wealthy. Baba Okana Meji was looking for something to dedicate himself to because he was talented at a bunch of different things, but he really didn't know what to do. That's why he would do one thing today, one thing tomorrow. He was all over the place, and people were like, well, what are you going to do? And he went for divination with Orunmila, and his Odu was revealed. 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗶 was basically prescribed with various types of cloth, right? And when he did the 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗶, he started twiddling with the cloth, and he actually made clothing. He actually learned about, sewing and fashion design and all of those things. And he actually started selling his clothes to people, right? And the clothes were so nice and his cloths were so exclusive that it caught the eye of the kings in Yoruba land, where everybody wanted, a nice, abada, or the nice big, dress suit that the Babalaos wear over there and the kings wear, or the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, which is the fine cloth that the Alafing wears, from him. So he started basically tailoring for each of these gentlemen. Now, mind you, a lot of people don't realize this. Like, authentic cloth over there in Yoruba land, each one of those things is like $1,000 each, the really heavy ones, like the ones those brothers get get married in and whatnot. That's not the regular dashiki.
Oh.
And this guy started moving a lot of product, and he ended up becoming the royal tailor, you know, and he had not only that going for him, he would actually get clothes and distribute them and bring, and he would sell out every time. And it was just a very prosperous Odu in that regard, where Baba Okana Meji is an Odu of entrepreneurship. But the most important thing in this Odu for anybody that has it is doing what they utterly enjoy. But to be able to find out what we enjoy, we have to look within. We have to introspect, and through that, we will be happy in company with Ifa. Because Okana Meji is an Odu that says that the person does not live off of Ifa. The person is not going to be a 9-to-5 babalao. And that's okay, because it might not be their destiny. It might be. I don't know. But at the end of the day, regardless of what they choose or how they choose to incorporate it, they need to have a business. They need to have a trade. They need to have a service that they offer, because Ifa says they're going to be very good at it, and they're going to become very affluent based on the affluence of their clients. So,
gotcha.
Just a little history on this Odu, because I'm sure we're coming full circle at this point.
Yeah.
This Odu is interesting because there's a couple little tidbits about it. There was a gentleman named Adeshina who was Baba Ifa Meji, right? And he is seen as, like, you know, one of the primordial bawalaos that came over from Nigeria to Cuba. Some people say he was initiated in Nigeria, which is what I think, because he had the tribal markings. But some people say he was initiated in Cuba by other elders, whether it be 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗃 or, you know, 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏 or whomever, you know. But I think personally he came as a bawalao already from Nigeria based on what I've been able to see and study. Mind you, this guy is in everybody's moyuba. He is, you know, a historical figure. Like, you'll go to Cuba and you'll actually see photos of him, and it'll say Adeshina, the first bawalao in Cuba. You know, so he's a legend. Now, they say that this gentleman had a godson that was Okana Meji, that he initiated, that was Okana Meji. But the gentleman's name is kind of obscure. But it's ironic because they gave him the nickname Odu, right? Making reference to the central energy that makes Ifa flow.
Uh-huh.
But the interesting thing is seeing the relationship between those two Odus. Obviously, I don't know the relationship between those men. I don't know how things transpired from a godfather, godchild standpoint. But Baba Ifa Meji and Baba Okana Meji are interesting because they are two sides of the same coin. If you flip Ifa Meji, it becomes Okana Meji, etc., right? But it actually says that they're actually pretty toxic for each other. Because it says that Ifa Meji would, I won't say manipulate Okana Meji, but he would present things in a way that would make Okana Meji do things for him that might not have benefited Okana Meji, being that he didn't know completely. So, ironically, this is one of those Odus where it says, in person, in human, it's best for them not to overstimulate each other. There's actually a verse where a blessing comes from Okana Meji doing a specific 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 or incantation from Ifa Meji in Okana Meji. So it's kind of like a tumultuous, toxic thing where they help each other spiritually, but they can't overstimulate each other physically or socially, because they cause each other to, you know, do erroneous things. Like, for example, going back to the original theme of where Okana Meji does everything backwards or upside down, they say that Ifa Meji was Shango in the story, where he told Okana Meji, give me the rooster instead of Eshu. And Okana Meji was like, okay. And he did it, and 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 completely flipped out. So I always thought that was interesting because I always heard about that. Obviously, I don't know their relationship. Maybe they had a wonderful relationship and they were intelligent enough to know how to mitigate that to where it was a healthy padrino-hijado relationship. But Okana Meji has to be very keen to preserve the relationship with their elders and those around them so that they don't end up in situations where everybody benefits except them based on their actions, right? So, a lot of information. Really great Odu, in my opinion. I enjoyed studying it quite a bit. I studied it on both sides, Isese as well as Lukumi. Really digested all that information.
Now, in Isese and Lukumi, are they different stories?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you'll always see common themes. Like, there are stories that have come over so intact that you really can't tell the difference. But, for example, like the story about Shango and the ram, the verse is in Isese and the story is over here, you know? And they have a different version of it where Shango and Abo had a farm together, I believe. And they found out Shango was stealing, and 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 came to fight Shango, and Shango cheated and killed 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 in an unethical way, and till this day, Shango eats the ram. And another Odu that speaks of that as well is 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁 𝗃𝗏, where Shango ate the ram when he wasn't supposed to, and Ogun ate his dog, and they just decided to stay with each other's animals. Yeah, it got greasy. You see that translation between both systems, but you do see a lot of common themes for sure. You can see where one came from the other, or, another concept that some people aren't ready to digest is maybe we have information that we brought with us from Africa here that didn't stay in Africa, because we have things that they don't have over there. They have things we don't have over here. So I think it's a really important message, especially in an Odu like this, where unity. If we come together and we study together and we learn together and we put ego to the side and we accept where we are versus where we want to be and work towards that in a healthy fashion, this Odu can accomplish a lot of great things. But if someone delves into the toxic energy of this Odu, they will find themselves stagnant and alone in more ways than one. So ultimately, it's up to them how they choose to live. But I expect positive things.
Wow. Well, is this one of your favorite ones?
I enjoyed studying Okana Meji quite a bit. I did, because I am, as much as I'm okay with talking about Shango's toxicities, I am Shango's biggest fan, because I think you can learn so much from him. The most admirable thing about that Orisha is he never hid anything. He kept it a buck all the way through. He never said he was something when he wasn't. And I think he's a great example for men and what not to do in that first half of life and what to do as we progress into the second half. Because Shango, after the age of 40, was a perfect gentleman. But he spoke to 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲, he spoke to Orunmila, he learned, he grew, testosterone went down a little bit, and he was a man's man. So, commemoration to him, because this is his 𝗃𝗍𝗍. So,
nice.
Boru.
Okay, well, guess what time it is? It's time.
Hey, my favorite.
For us to show some love to the people who show love to you.
Very nice.
So, guys, on the bottom of this video, there's a little button that says join, and that'll give you access to 3 separate tiers. Each tier offering something different and something awesome, whether it's live shows, early releases, discounts on merch, video chats, all that jazz. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to give a shout out to the OG VIPs.
Yeah.
These are your day ones here.
I love you guys. I appreciate you. I don't know how you can watch me talk so much, really. My kids are like, all right, we're done with you. Walk away.
All right. So these people have been here for 19 months and up.
Wow.
So we have 21 months is how long we've had the program. But, okay, so Lulu Sprandell.
Oh, thank
21 months.
Shout out to Lulu.
Queen, Liquid Waters.
Oh, yeah, Boru.
21. We got Laja Rocks, 21 months.
Thank you.
We got Junior Nanez.
Oh, my God, Sonny Boru.
For 21 months. We got Trini Rican Goddess.
Okay, my goddaughter, Boru.
We got, hold on, where'd the button go? Here. There you go.
My elevator music.
We got Desert Woman.
Thank you.
We got Jabri Benadryl? What is that? Benadryl? Hold on.
Oh, Jabri. Yeah, my godson Jabri. Boru.
My screen is so small, I got to squint to look at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got 𝗃𝗍𝗶𝗍 Moyo.
Thank you.
We got Mark Antonio Rodriguez.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, Boru.
We got Anna Ospina.
Oh, awesome.
Scratches.
Oh, man. OG.
We got Robert Cifuentes.
The Vips. Yeah, shout out to Rob.
And, yeah, those are the OGs that have been here longer than 19. Oh, wait. I'm missing one. Kathy, of course.
Of course. Shout out to my goddaughter, Kathy.
Sheree Lee.
Thank you. Yeah.
And yeah, that's it for the VIPs that have been here since the beginning. Shout out to you guys.
Shout out to the VIP OGs, the shot callers. We appreciate you so much, just like we appreciate all of our members and all of our viewers. Let us know what you thought about this episode. botanicacandlesandmore.com is up and running for all service and product needs. We ship all over the place. If you can't catch us on YouTube, catch us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, the audio cast. We're doing well on there as well. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, guys, as always, see the light.